30th, 2022 minutes. Everybody a chance to look at those. JRJ Hotel LLC Special Class C. Motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Same side. Motion carried. Approve nonprofit contract for City Betterment Association. Make that motion. Motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Get through this resolution. Approve resolution number 12, 2223 of the Ellsworth County Board of Supervisors to request the assistance of Northwest Iowa Planning and Development Commission.
I'll make the motion for resolution 12, 2223.
Have a motion and support. Mr. Schulte. Aye. Mr. Jones? Aye. Mr. Vanderhook? Aye. Mr. DeBoer? Aye. Mr. Helmut votes aye. Approve the agreement between Northwest Iowa Planning and Development Commission and Ellsworth County.
Make that motion.
Motion and support to approve that agreement. All those in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. Go to department heads. Since you come in last, you get to be first.
Are you ready?
Yep, I'm
Ready
ready.
in 10 to 9. I just want the donut.
8:50.
Get your priorities straight.
Says 8:50.
All right, 8:50. What time is it?
8:50. All right, you can go first.
All right. Well, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, I don't run it with the IDVA. I was part of the rest of there, they sent me an email saying that the board was going to fire me because I didn't have my CUs. I got a little funky for a while, but they let me go to Illinois for a week. I said, screw you. But anyway, I did some online things for a week and stuff.
I want you to put that in.
Just the way you said it.
I got it written out for you. Oh, I'm good for the year at least, I guess. There was an honor flight a couple weeks ago, and there was 3 guys from Philip County, but we went down for the welcome home, stayed in the plane that landed at 2 in the morning. But it was raining, and the runway's too short, so.
Where's that?
Fort Dodge.
They had to go to the cities, didn't they?
Yeah, landed in cities because they run out of fuel, so they go up there and refuel. And this afternoon I'm looking at the fair this evening. And Leroy can have a long time.
Sure. Did you bring treats?
Yeah.
Leroy. Would you ladies like to come in and sit down?
Spots here?
There's a couple spots here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Sheila or Deb, which? Go ahead, Sheila.
Okay, we're busy with, like, people are coming in for hunting license now. A few bows sit and your rangers and all that kind of thing. Lots of documents lately, so.
Busy.
I'm not sure what Deb has to say.
Yeah.
The only other thing is September 1st, you can start renewing your ATVs or some snowmobiles, so I'm busy with that too.
Angie, did you have something?
I'm just visiting.
She's just a pretty face.
Ernie? Well,
portion, kind of at the ambulance. They're lowering the gravel area, so we can start pouring concrete in the front of the ambulance, so Petey's out there right now. So, it's a start.
You know, Keith, I guess you're up.
Sure. So, we have quotes on sprayer equipment. We're creating a sprayer attachment that we're gonna add onto one of our trucks during the summer, and then in the winter, it'd be a plow truck. So you'll see that coming before you in the future. Basically, we're gonna take the sprayer up from currently 500 gallon to an 1,800 gallon sprayer for much more efficiency. And the other sprayer equipment we have is kind of aged out. The trail that we had discussed earlier, there was a hole or a washout built on the hill slope. We did get that repaired. We'll be working on doing trimming of the trees and things like that on the trail in the fall, which will then allow us to get the mowers in, so we can do better maintenance on that trail. Culvert work, we're all done on A22, heading out here east of town. L32 up in the northwest corner, we're done with all the culverts. We're doing the concrete patching right now, and then we're working on the culvert replacement and tying on A34 down by Ashton that will roll into concrete patching down there. We'll have all that tied up and done by the winter. The annual report required by Iowa DOT has been submitted also. And then at the Thomas Pit, they are done with the aggregate mining out there. We have about 100,000 tons of aggregate that was mined for Thomas Pit, which will give us about another 2.5 years worth of aggregate going forward. And the only other thing I have is the technician position. We're not really having any luck on getting applicants for that at this time. That may go on into the spring before we find out.
All right, thank you. Sharon?
Update on our court cases, the 2021 session of board review resulted in 2 court cases. The one with Poet, we made them an offer, and they countered, and we declined, so we now have a hearing date for July 15, 2023. The next era is pending based on Story County case. They won their summary judgment, and that got appealed, so we're just waiting to see how next era turns out with Story County, because we'll essentially follow along with that ruling. And then we're 3/4 of the way through the year with residential sales, and at this point, looks like a 35% increase in residential sales, according to the residential sales. So I don't know how that's going to happen. We'll see. You know, the scary thing is, we know that interest rates are up, and there's going to be, the market's going to stop, but it's not going to show up in the sales yet this year. So it's kind of bad timing to have low interest, low inventory in a real estate year, and those are the numbers I have to live with. See?
All right, thank you. Kevin?
All I have is that my 2 new guys, they started the academy yesterday, so I was out there for 8 weeks, so other than that, everything keep moving.
Nolan?
Well, we've been seeing a variety of things. I have a couple of juvenile court termination of parental rights hearings that are in the works that have been going on for some time, so the amount of back and forth we have with those, we're looking forward to getting those wrapped up, hopefully. I have a couple of cases that we'd like to dispose of at the October criminal trial date, and we'll see how those shake out, plea negotiations. I've been staying busy with a number of different civil things over the past couple of weeks, as you guys know, and working with Nick on terminating some farm leases and reviewing some various agreements, including the not-for-profit matching grant that we talked about in the previous meeting, so that's pretty much been it recently.
All right. Deb, did you have anything to add?
No.
Rochelle?
We had the HMS school election today. We got our general election ballots yesterday, so we're approving them to make sure that they're all correct. Chantry's going to be taking over Sharon's real estate sometime this week. We got notification from Spencer yesterday that DD 64 and 65, they're gonna be working on that at the end of this week, starting that project, so. Other than that,
Anybody else have anything else? If not, I think Leroy provided treats.
And then there's the discuss compensation with you of that department head.
Okay.
Jason, or, no?
I think Rochelle provided a PowerPoint presentation that we received at ISAC. This is something that I'm curious what department heads think, what employees think. It's a process we want to enter into. Some of the points, I need to go through the whole PowerPoint. It's something that we've considered. The gentleman that's presented was willing to come up and give the presentation, answer questions at no cost. Worth considering. I think you put an apples-to-apples comparison to positions and really analyze what they require and what the market should hold for that position, rather than the mercy of supervisors deciding what elected officials get and just going down the line with that. So I see potential value to it, but if people aren't bought in or interested, then there's not. So I didn't want to push or make a decision without getting some feedback. Any thoughts from staff or department heads? I think it'd be absolutely essential that our conservation board or assessors conference board, everyone is on board with abiding by and agreeing with what gets finalized here.
I didn't get all that, Jay. Somebody comes up here and
Paul Groove runs this HR1 source, and has been in HR, has implemented this in other counties. Pocahontas is the one that I remember has done this from a county level. Basically, you're establishing every position has a wage grade or scale, and then a wage is tied to that scale. Then annually, that scale, those wages, or that wage range would increase by the cost of living, or the consumer price index for that year.
so you're not bound or anything, is it just guidelines you use? Or?
I think we'd largely be bound to staying within the wage matrix that gets created for each position. Obviously, elected officials are treated differently in the code, so they wouldn't be applied the same, but the gentleman indicated that even the compensation board could use the similar process to analyze recommendations from that level as well. There are pros, there's certainly potentials for cons, but I think it really solidifies what we're doing here rather than leaving it to us. If you like that, then I guess we can continue on that, but it's worth presenting or bringing up a thought.
So that's gonna tell us where we fall compared to other counties, is that what you mean?
They would take that into account as they're factoring, I don't remember how we termed it exactly, but you determine a pay grade level, 1 through 65, whatever. You analyze other counties, outside services that may do similar things, private sector, just what that job entails, and you create, one of the things he mentioned, well, does the job require a degree? You have to have those types of education. All those, just a variety of factors get weighed into it and determine a reasonable or optimal wage scale. The presentation initially from the expert, who would be far better listened to than me, is, he said he'd come up for free. Just shooting a number out there when asked at ISAC, he said probably around the $20,000 range. Now, there were counties that are many times our size and counties actually smaller than us, so I'm sure there's variation within that, but that'd be a ballpark to have in mind.
I didn't hear all that, is that for them to come and do the study?
The full study, not the presentation or answering questions further. You do that
being willing to do that, his wife is mean, because she likes to travel.
Oh, yeah.
Is this all they do, or are they also an HR department?
They do, I believe they do outsourcing for HR.
So, we can, so this would be in conjunction with, Jack, or replace Jack?
The intent would be to continue to use Jack. This is establishing a framework for positions and pay.
I suppose I don't really see an issue with at least seeing the presentation as, but my big concern is what goes into this in terms of the actual details of it beyond what's shown in the PowerPoint, which I looked at. Because, I mean, there is a question of this is truly apples to apples. What does go into it that makes it that comparison? And, you know, I suppose looking at the presentation that you sent from Isaac, I didn't see anything in there about the study that concerned county attorney's legal assistance, unless I missed something in there. I don't believe I saw that. So, if it's to be apples to apples, and it were to potentially include my office, as you talked about having buy-in from everyone, I would probably want to see some more detail and a lot of information about that, so that we can be sure that if my office would be included, then that would be fairly looked at.
Any other thoughts or comments from department heads?
I think there's some merit in it, because we all know things are all over the board right now. And, you know, I have an employee that has 4-year degree, he knows the job, and he's getting paid somebody that's just a 2-year deputy. You know, I think there's some merit in evening the playing field.
So what are you guys gonna do, take a look at it? Have them come out and give a presentation? Anybody wanna take a look at it?
I've listened to a presentation.
Sure. Your department is the one, probably not only, I don't know that we could or would.
You're right.
Address union.
But I still think, you know, a presentation, no offense to you, for somebody that knows what they're talking about. It's probably better as well. Good start. I didn't mean it that way.
Good shot. Well, you can ask him the questions that maybe Jason can't answer, so. All right. Move forward to that, see if we can get something lined up. Okay. We'll keep looking at it then. If that's it, James, Jason, you got anything else, or is that it? All right, now I guess it's still time. Craig was hoping nobody would take any, so he had some left over, so we could take some home.
So there's no here.
There's no log down.
Maybe. We're done here?
Yeah.
You're done.
Nick is out sick with a sick child. Nick, his daughter has COVID.
All right. I guess we can move into, where are we at? Storage shed specs. Is that you, Dan?
Sandy has been getting specs, I know she's been talking to people, but obviously not here, so I don't really know what she came up with.
I have a copy of this in your package. He's made the spec, a rough draft of them, we just wanna make sure
I could try it.
what we need to change, because I didn't add in the paper for this, to make sure that everybody gets the same spec, and
Who did this?
Keith did it.
Okay.
And just, I wanna have this out, we just listed the building size, but just list how we came up with that size. Whether or not that's the size we want, or is it smaller, bigger, I do not know what the size of the current building is.
current building right now is 32 by 62.
Okay.
5 days with significant work orders around those days.
We made it a little bit bigger so that we have room in front to put the shelving. So instead of the shelving being on the side the way they are right now, we have room in the front to put the shelving all in the front and still put the cars in there and not tender.
Okay.
So that's why the building, these specs are a little bit bigger.
So the building is deeper probably than is ultimately necessary, but it would provide a lot of efficient storage space beyond the depth of the cars being parked as well. You could certainly shorten it to a 30-foot depth or something like that. It's really just for cars, but for other storage, it would give some lighting space.
Never called, Kevin, did you say you would like 2 stalls or 2 stalls and 1 secured stall?
Probably 2 stalls and 1 secured stall.
That is what we have currently going on. And that's why we placed the access doorway between those other 4 unsecured stalls. So everything to the right would pretty much be the sheriff's stall.
We have election equipment in that tall white building.
Correct.
County car and potentially an assessor's car, I don't know if they want to contribute financially to this process through the conference board, or, I don't think we're under any obligation to house that car as a county. And so I think some participation would be warranted. I don't know if we want to look at putting a smaller door in the upper left for like the sergeant actor and maintenance equipment access rather than moving cars in and out, or if that would be serviceable.
So like a little side garage or like just straight, not necessarily sided for actual golf cart, just a passenger, 7-foot wide, standard garage.
That's what I thought potentially.
You okay with this, Kevin? Does this look good to you?
Yes, that was fine.
Any other comments or suggestions?
Are those 10 or 12-foot doors in that Chevy truck?
They're 11-foot doors right now. Yeah.
The width.
Oh, the width,
Yeah, 12-foot, they're 12-foot wide, right?
yeah.
We could show this as 12-foot wide doors on this as well. I would suggest just cheat in some of that extra wall space, not necessarily add another 10-foot to the whole building there for the extra doorway.
All right, this looks good, everybody. Is this something we want to put out?
Yeah, looks good to me.
I mean, one of the
What
questions.
those, go ahead, no.
One of those questions is windows, do we want windows in the garage doors, or, I mean, some of the questions we had down below, I just didn't know.
I don't think so. I don't think, like Kevin, your doors, you probably want windows, would you, or not?
No, I'd prefer not to have windows. I don't need everybody looking in there and seeing what's in there, so. I'd say no.
The only windows we're gonna put were gonna be on the doors.
Be okay with windows on the unsecured doors and non-windows on the secured bay, or no windows at all, your preference?
I guess the main thing would be, no windows on the secured section.
Okay.
But if you had to put 1 or 2 in on the unsecured section, that'd be fine.
You got any windows on top panels, the doors too, so you get some natural light, but you're not really.
That's where, yeah, the upper panels of the garage doors, so just a natural light in there. Yeah, I mean, they're 10-foot tall doors, so we can put them up in the upper 8-foot area. But not on the.
But if anybody wants to see in there, then they really want to see in there.
I think it'd be good to have windows in the doors at least, I don't know if the other windows are necessary, but some natural light in there would be.
We figured if the primary purpose is storage, we did need additional windows besides in the door handles. And no windows on the access portion.
All right, got a
it is.
So
and
40-foot depth to the garage, then?
And then just, the only thing else is windows on the garage doors.
Yeah.
Anything else you got?
No?
Do you mind preparing an alternate bid to include that smaller door in the upper left portion of the picture?
I think there's value just putting it in. Talking $400 for another door.
Anything else? Make a motion to proceed with these specs of windows in the 4 unsecured doors, smaller overhead door added to the, to me, it would be the northwest corner of the garage, I imagine it sitting in there.
Well, location on the site is something to discuss. You want it in series with the current shop, or you want it kicked and turned and facing Northwest Boulevard? How it sits on the site.
I'd say the way it is right now,
I would too.
just on the east side of what's
So kind of in theory.
still facing north, or south.
If everything
Facing
pushed to
south.
the east, so you're not.
And like exhibit how you use that side door, if you want to have that side garage door,
How much clearance we have there, but
get around between the two buildings.
The two buildings would be a little ways apart.
Fire and tractor probably wouldn't be a problem, but if you want to have any other functionality for that garage door, you need more space between the buildings.
I think there'll be room on the east end, won't there? Depends on where Kevin wants his base, which direction too.
Yeah, I had no problem, we put the base, my base, wherever you need to put them, that's what they need.
And are we taking down any of the existing other maybe shed type buildings that are there, still in that range?
No.
Yeah,
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, well, that kind of inhibits using a north-south orientation on the east side because of the existing shed.
I would favor having both other buildings removed, offered to bid, or.
If that's the case, then we can orient the building in a north-south orientation facing Northwest Boulevard. The other thing to consider is Sibley, like most zoning codes, most likely have a double, front yard setback on each street. So, and what, if we need the setback, I can check that.
The way I understand it, you would like it facing west? Right,
It could face west.
No,
It could face west.
I'd rather not have it face west.
Okay.
I thought that's what you were saying, you wanted it to face.
That's one of the possibilities, especially if you want more functionality for that side garage door that you talked about. Otherwise, we have to make sure we have enough space between the two buildings to be able to utilize that.
I'd rather see it face south.
I would too.
Okay.
West and north is tough for.
Is there an alley that runs through there?
No,
There's no
but there's somebody using it at the alley.
So they probably should have checked into.
If they had it north this way, then at least you could still push snow where you push it now, right?
Yes.
All right, anything else on that? Then Jason had a motion, was anything added to that motion now, Jason? I'll support it. A motion and support to proceed with, storage shed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. That's close to our 9:15.
Anybody out there?
Nobody's out there? All right, then we'll.
Somebody coming?
Yeah.
Somebody is coming? Okay. We'll move on to discuss maintenance ground feature preservation. Is that Ernie?
Sure.
Well, personally, I hate to see that resignation. I do too. Any questions, comments? Anybody else?
I thank the diligence you did the position with and the time and energy you put into it. We wrestled with your latest request and I hope they come up with an idea that would be palatable. It, bothers me that it's not. I think we're losing a bit if we can find someone with the same level of dedication. And thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Or you could come to an agreement.
I'll make a motion to accept. I have a motion to accept the resignation. Do I have support? Any support? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Is anybody here yet? No.
Melissa was coming.
Guess we can talk about hiring the program.
All right. Discuss hiring a photo between the auditor.
I need to get,
Authorize advertising for that position.
yeah, I have to add in the job description.
For?
For Ernie's position.
Okay.
And you already got the one in for,
I have the one in for the custodian.
yeah.
But Friday's the deadline, and I'm not getting calls or.
Got a stack of shit, right?
I've not received one call, nothing. And Friday's the deadline. For, Michelle's position.
And that might not be enough hours to get some of the interest that they have, that they can bite back in with the job before. I guess that's a thought, if we don't get any takers on that, we'll look at it with it.
So if I run the ad in the paper 21st, I run it for 2 weeks and have applications due by the 30th of September. That's what.
Everybody's talking.
Mhm.
I suppose.
For 3 weeks,
What date is the resignation identified?
the 30th of September. No one will get hired before you quit.
Yeah. I'd say 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Check language in there that deadline is like September 30th, the position open until filled or.
Add in. Yeah, add in the, what we used the last time. I just would appreciate some help from the board, because I can't do it all with Emily and the team, maybe, so I'm gonna appreciate
I already
some help.
volunteered.
You know, I can't.
I'll come in to do bathrooms and garbage.
Thank you.
Not mopping.
Do we need to consider, private cleaning company? Are there people in the area that do that?
You know, people that clean homes.
Yeah, that's.
You know, right,
Or is there companies that?
I don't know of any company locally, but, you know, right now, the floors aren't so bad.
No.
It's, when the snow comes, that's when they're, when that's, you know, that's when they're bad.
Every day.
Yeah, it's every day of mopping, you know.
Put your own food stuff going.
Yep.
Well, no offense, Ed, you can't do it forever either, I mean, we gotta have a.
I'm just helping out.
I understand, but I mean, if you don't get nobody to apply, then we have to look one time we checked into a
We did,
outside.
it's like
one.
white gloves, and there's like 2 or 3 that we got bids from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's split up.
Should we reach out to those companies?
Let's see how the ad runs first.
That ad's already out, well, on
That is-
Friday, whether we got any applicants, right?
Excuse me, when are you planning on running this ad for Ernie, correct?
Yeah, next week, 21st,
21st, gonna run it.
3 weeks, it's the 3 weeks.
Okay, so run the 21st and 28th, and then the first week in October? And the resubmission is September 30th?
I'm just back to, Michelle's job, something to do with the phone. Should we reach out to, hopefully White Glove again, or whatever you call it.
Well, you
But
got,
I'm not gonna lie to you, I am not. I'm not trying
I
to.
mean, we can take care of the garbage, you know, or we can help that out. The bathrooms and sweeping the floors and stuff like that. Yeah, we don't have to, we'll get through it, we don't have a choice.
And what is Michelle done?
I think there's having some.
Well, that may be moving this time to combine the positions. Any other thoughts, Jason? Any other thoughts on?
I think we probably need to look at outside contract for some time being. No, I think we've been too critical of the position and treated the situation for ourselves that I don't know what to say.
All right, any more discussion on this subject, or we?
so you, you want me to look for outside cleaning help?
I think we should, I think we, somebody should.
And we'll have to worry about where we hire them all and then we want, and so we need to be dropping here soon.
Like,
And I don't know anything about the boilers or, you know, the sheet metal's gonna have to come help us with that.
Do you contact somebody like Taylor Hitting, or?
We can, yeah, if you remember.
I understand we have our own equipment and all that, but I mean, to get
Yeah.
through
Right,
a month or whatever it takes,
yeah.
as far as the ongoing needs. There shouldn't be a lot, but I know there's some, so. I don't know, does anybody else in town do it, Jason, do you know? Taylor's.
Right, Norseman does a lot in the summer, once school starts.
I'll reach out, I'll just, is it okay? I reach out to Taylor, just ask him?
is there any cleaning service here?
Not that I know of. There is?
Hey, what? Like janitorial services, like your.
Not that I know of. There's some private ladies, but they would probably, if they're interested, would probably already.
Yeah.
The hours isn't bad, that's why you're almost gonna have to go to one.
It's only like 2 to 3 hours a night, so I mean, it's hard, it's not enough,
Well,
it's enough to be part-time, but yeah.
It's odd hours too.
Mm-hmm.
Any family.
Just in the summer, maybe 2
All right, you
hours.
reach out to the cleaning people, I'll reach out to Taylor and just ask him what, you know, what to do. If that's okay with everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. This our Care Connections ladies, okay?
We're running a little late.
You're up. You're up.
Marley likes to be front and center, so I like to put it right there. All right, hi everyone. Good afternoon. You have 2 different documents coming your way. Well, hi everyone, I am Melissa Lear, I'm your friendly CEO from Care Connections of Northern Iowa. This is Marley Declarable. She is your service coordinator for Oklahoma County. Thanks for having us. It's nice to see you guys back in this room. I know last time we came, we were in the midst of COVID and upstairs, so it's nice to be back. It's been a while since I've been in this room. So today I chat about all things Care Connections. I have two different documents in front of you. The shorter one that says administrative highlights is what I'll go through. My hope was today to go through some of the highlights from the past years. And then I also have in that packet as well our FY23 annual service and budget plan. So that gives you an idea as far as where we're projecting to spend our dollars this year, what our objectives are to meet this year. And then to wrap up today, then I was hoping that Marlene would talk to you about things going on in Osceola County, and you guys can ask questions and things like that. You can stop me at any time, but I'll just kind of share a couple things that we've had really, really busy last fiscal year, and we're moving into, again, more busy years. So just kind of a recap on what has happened legislatively. This last year, so FY22, we were a hybrid of taxes, so Senate File 19 says that moving forward, we will have a state appropriation for our mental health dollars. So FY22 was a hybrid where the state contributed $15.86 per capita, and then we had the levy rate that was set. So we had that through FY22. FY23, we started out with a state appropriation. We get 4 quarterly payments a year. This year we're projected at $40 per capita, just to kind of, or $38 per capita. Just to kind of give you an idea where we were before we had the levy, our maximum levy could be $30.30. So we've increased that revenue with the state appropriations to be able to do different things. But with that being said, within the last year as well, we also had to, the state mandated our fund balances being within certain levels. So we had a pretty aggressive strategy and plan. Our board, we worked closely with the board to really get in line. We hit all of our objectives. What it needed to do is last year, our expenses needed to be at 40% or below. So before that, because we didn't have a lot of structure or stability knowing where revenues and things would be, the region was always very conservative with those dollars. And so basically the condition that we were in was if we did not get below that 40% fund balance, then the state would withhold some of our payments that we would be getting, our quarterly payments. And then they would also be looking at taking a payback from those payments as well. So and then what the state did was they started the state incentive fund. So those dollars that they took back or they didn't pay us would go into a state incentive fund. We would be able to apply for those dollars later on for innovative projects, things like that. So the money would still stay within the state, but it goes from being local to a statewide pot.
Jason, go over that so she can get this.
This is what they do during the meeting.
So with that, we worked really hard to keep those dollars locally. And so I'll talk in here about what that looks like. We gave out grants this last year, and we had some big endeavors, so I'll get to that here. But page 1, just looking at that, because of the change of Senate File 619, we are now contractors with the Department of Human Services for mental health and disability services. The state has always mandated what we're supposed to do, but now we have a contract with them. So page 1 in the bullet points talk about what those initiatives look like. And so just to kind of give you an idea, that looks like reducing the emergency department usage, improve the use of mobile crisis, jail diversion services, and employment outcomes. So those are some different things that you're going to see the region put some dollars behind and programming behind as well, on top of all of our already core services that we have. I won't bore you with some of the other little more intricate things, but page 2 goes more into the details of that contract and what the requirements for both proximity and timeliness are to be able to access services. So example, mobile crisis is a service that is required to be in every county in Iowa. We actually, with Season Center, our region was one of the very first ones with Season Center to get that started several years ago. But giving an example, a couple years ago, we took on Cassuth, Winnebago, and Worth County. They did not have mobile crisis, so we needed to get that up and going for them, and so they just started that July of 2020. So just really trying to get everyone up on the same speed as far as getting the services, and getting everyone kind of at that standard area of where they need to be. So, page 2 talks about what those services, are that are mandated by the state. I'd be happy to talk more in detail about those, but I'm gonna talk about them here in just a couple minutes. Page, 4 and 5, 3 and 4, talk mostly about budget, you know, worked a lot on, different budget, items for this last year because it was just such an interesting year, to get down to our fund balance areas. Another exciting thing, is community-based, services started in Clay, Osceola, and Palo Alto County. So in March of this year, we started contracting that with, Season Center. What community-based crisis services are is, when a mobile crisis goes out to, a crisis event, normally they will de-escalate the situation once everyone is, you know, kind of, they've moved on from that situation. Sometimes they need some more intensive case management. So this service is available, it's voluntary. It's 3 to 5 days and it's available to the individuals in their home. So they will have staff, therapists, peer support, nursing, things like that, be able to come into their home, for a period of time to work with them on medication management, making appointments. So whatever that crisis was, working to de-escalate that crisis in that individual's home so that they can stay in the community and stay in the home. And so it's just kind of a more intensive set of wraparound services that, is available now. We also have that service. There's a community-based crisis stabilization, and then there's also crisis stabilization residential. Community-based and residential, the services themselves are the same. You can get them whether you're underneath the residential facility or you're in your home. The services themselves look the same. It just depends on where your location is. So if there's a residential program, I'll talk about it here in a minute. We're building one in Spencer right now, this Season Center, and I'll talk about that endeavor we're working on. But currently, there's assessment centers in Sioux City and in Sac City. And so when individuals go there right now, they actually go, they're admitted and they check in for 3 to 5 days there as well. I like to look at the difference of, while the service is the same, I think about it as if I'm a parent and I'm at home or I'm a farmer, it would be difficult for me to leave my home, leave my kids, have to do all that. So if the services can come to me, I can maintain it in my home and things like that. For some individuals, maybe home's the trigger, maybe home's the place that they don't need to be, and maybe they need to get away from that. That would be where crisis stabilization with residential, where they could be admitted to a place for a period of several days, work pretty intensely with that, and then they would be able to discharge that home. So the idea behind that is that where people maybe would have gone to the hospital, that was really the only level of care, was hospital or home, in the emergency room. Now we have a different array of services that are out there for individuals with brain health issues to be able to access, which will hopefully divert people out of our emergency rooms, divert out of our jails, divert out of our inpatient units that aren't really needed. So I'll talk about those next services coming up, but just staying on track here, in April, that is when we really looked at our budget as we're getting into budget planning, looking at our fund balance and trying to be in alignment with that. So with the work group that Jason was on, we formed a impact grant committee, so we talked about how to spend those dollars, what's the best way, the best course of action to make it sustainable, but also, you know, the biggest bang for our buck. So we released a grant called the Impact Grant in April. Agencies were able to write up to 3 requests for up to $300,000 per request for things such as access to mental health for adults or children, workforce shortage strategy issues, accessibility, facility improvement, and services for people with mental illness that are homeless. So those were the key areas that we targeted. And coming up in a couple of pages, I'll show you how those awards got granted out there. April 6th, we had some trainings with our board of supervisors to talk to them about what the region does in more detail about the services that we provide and give kind of county training. And we're happy to do that again at any time. We're happy to come out to your county, do it individually per county, or host another event. On the 27th of April, we had our Solution Point training, the crisis cops come up. Their officers, if you've gone to ISAC conferences, you may have seen them there. They have HBO documentary. It's called Crisis Cops, and it talks about just another way to do law enforcement and having kind of mental health involved in your law enforcement department and what that looks like. So we had them come up, we had that training in Cassuth County. There was also a training in Sheldon. Each region hosted their different areas. So we actually hosted 4 trainings within the Northwest Iowa corner, so that officers, if the one-day training, if they couldn't make it to, say, Sheldon, they could go to Algona. If they couldn't go to Algona, then they could go to Sioux City. If they couldn't go to Sioux City, they could go to Sac City. So we gave multiple opportunities for multiple departments to get there, to be able to have this training, with the intention of having them return for a 40-hour training, which is crisis intervention training, which is a phenomenal training that many of our officers are very excited about to do that, and so that's something that we're looking at hosting next year for all of our law enforcement officers.
Rochelle and Kevin and I attended the April 6th board training event. I know we had at least 2 deputies, I don't remember how many, that went to the crisis.
Yeah, we had great turnout for both, yeah. So in May, the other thing that we did is, so with our balance, so we had the impact grant out. The other thing, in order to hit our core services, there was one service that we really wanted to get within the region, and that was crisis stabilization. Well, let me go back. 23-hour observation and crisis stabilization residential. We have contracts with individuals in Sioux City, with Siouxland Mental Health and St. Jerry Mental Health for the facility in Sac City. But we wanted something more local for our patients to be able to get in. We wanted them, the acceptance rates to be better, and so we worked with Seasons. Sioux Rivers actually had a couple proposals out there as well, where they wanted to have it within their region as well. They were entertaining some proposals. We decided to work together on that because we are so close within our proximity, and we have a lot of the same providers. So Stevens Center actually wrote for that proposal and was granted that. So they're in the process right now. So they were awarded $2 million for that. And what that really is going to do is it's going to, it remodels their main building in Spencer. So on the bottom part, they will have 2 23-hour observations. So that's where people can go in and get assessed. They can be screened and watched for about 23 hours to determine if they need to discharge home, if that's the right level of care, either go inpatient, go to crisis stabilization, either residential, or go to a subacute, which is a different level of care. So it gives them a window of time to be able to kind of de-escalate those situations and determine what the next best level of care is for them. So Stevens is developing 2 24-hour observation beds or chairs in that facility, 2 crisis residential rooms, and then they'll have the staff there to be able to support them, because that will be, when there's someone admitted into there, that's 24/7, because that is a residential program for them. And then, so that's the one piece, and so because Seasons is also displacing, it's going to be in their main building, which is phenomenal for this aspect, that we're kitty-cornered from the inpatient unit if needed. They're going to be able to access meals, things like that. There's a contract set up with nurses so that they'll have nursing staff available as needed as well. But with that, so they'll have, and then so they're displacing some workers, and so they have another center next to the Autumn Center where they'll be moving some of their therapists and things like that. So we're actually kind of moving 2 different people around, so we're kind of have 2 different construction areas, I guess, needless to say. The main building and their secondary building, because they're going to have, technically they'll have 3 places. They'll have the main building, Autumn Center, really for kids, and then they'll have kind of the old dentist office that they have there, where they'll put workers in as well. And then they have to place some of their administrative staff and therapists over there in order, because we're taking up space for the residential unit. So I'm excited to say we had to encumber those dollars in the state because the state will only let us hold so much in our bank account. So we were granted the acceptance to encumber those dollars for the next year to be able to release those dollars slowly to see if the project is going on throughout the next year. I'm going to stop for a second because I know I shared a lot, and just see if you guys have any questions, comments. Otherwise, I'll keep going here. But
looking at your grants here, did that Prairie Ridge grant, did that pay for multiple child psychologists? or just one?
That paid for one, but
One?
it didn't pay for just the psychologist. So
Okay.
wrapped up within that grant as well, it paid for therapists to get, additional training. They have, I think with EMDR, some different evidence-based training that their therapists, so that they would be able to do those components of therapy, with citizens in their community. So it was more than just a, psychiatrist. It paid for therapy training, it paid for some remodeling or some like office renovations, very minimal for like therapy offices and things like that in that area.
So like these community liaisons for like these mental health positions, is that the salary range for that as well?
No, so, on that, let me go to that page real quick. So if we're looking at, like the Clay Navigator position, that was a contribution that is going to be, it's the region's 3-year contribution, is kind of how we set it up. So, we kicked off dollars to start that program up. And then the really neat thing on some of those, like the Clay Navigator position, the $100,000 that we kicked in, Spencer Hospital has obligated that they're gonna kick in, $25,000 over the next 3 years for that. So our contribution is done over the next 3 years. The city of Spencer, we're working on them because it's a shared position. City of Spencer working on a contribution for them. They haven't signed on the line yet, but we think it's coming, $25,000 over the next 3 years. Season Center also has an endeavor in that where they're gonna pay $5,000 over the next 3 years for that position. So we're trying to bring that funding in where we can. Same thing with the, there's one more, Algona Police Department, same thing. So, that was, we didn't actually even, we lowered the amount they asked for, because they wanted like a position and a half, and it's a grant, so it's a one-time, it's not sustainable. So that was, a lot of conversation went around, how do you guys support this moving on? There may be a contribution to the region, again, if this works out well, and we see the data, and we see that this works well, but how are you gonna support this past the first year? And so they themselves, have worked towards the city of Algona contributing funds, and their law enforcement and things like that. So they're also under the head of, they're wrapping and they're bringing those fundings around so that we can keep these things sustainable, which I personally think is phenomenal to do, because we're a piece in the bigger puzzle, but in some of these things, it's not just mental health related. I mean, the police, when they're working out with individuals, they're working people with substance abuse, domestic violence, things like that. So, for other entities to have some money in the pot, outside of that, I think it puts us all playing ball in there together, and it puts a little bit more skin in the game, and it makes it, I think, as well, more sustainable, so the region doesn't have to support that for years and years to come.
Is Prairie Ridge gonna be able to sustain those jobs?
I think so. They have grown exponentially, you know, a lot over the past several years. And honestly, psychiatrists, they're a big expense. They don't always take in a lot of revenue, as much as you would think, but through having lower, like, PAs, nurse practitioners and things like that, they normally generate the revenue for them. But a lot of them, they need the psychiatrists and things to do the oversight, med management, things like that. So normally the psychiatrist is not your moneymaker. They're actually a really, expensive, but they allow you to be able to do more mid-level practitioners, so you can kind of make up the difference in those dollars.
And then if you get your reimbursement from the approved provider from the state, which I know a lot of these places are having issues, they're 180 days out in some cases on payment, and they're having to borrow money for flow payroll. So it's like, there's some things that need to get addressed at the state level, because otherwise we're gonna not have some of these places if this continues to be the way that we're gonna get paid.
Medicaid reimbursements are very, very poor right now. They went up actually last year, like on our average for people with mental illness. Their rates went up about 3 to 4% last year, which has been a long time since that's happened before. You know, you look at everywhere you go, you see, you know, signs that are starting at $15 an hour. Well, Medicaid rates aren't that much better. So to be able to pay $15 an hour, a lot of agencies are losing business, and not being able to serve. That's one of the number one issues that we have, is that through the last year, with CARES Act dollars, and I'm sure you guys have seen it with ARPA dollars, we've got quite a bit of money thrown at us, but we don't have the capacity to spend it because we don't have the workforce to necessarily to spend it. We've done that, like with our CARES Act dollars and things like that. several years ago, we got $608,000 for the CARES Act dollars, and we had a very short amount of time to spend that. And so some of the proposals we wanted to see, they just didn't have the workforce to do it. One thing I am positively hearing though, I was down with the state talking to DHS last week, and they have put into some of their ARPA money, they have done some, incentives, and they've done some reimbursements for agencies like our Hope Haven, our smaller agencies, to help recruit and, hire, workforce. It's surprisingly, I've heard, because it was really, really lagged for a while, that it's actually really helping, and that they're starting to see capacity start to grow again. Let's promise this year.
And then when you have places like Forest Ridge that DHS closed down, and now they're scrambling to figure out how to reopen something to replace that service. I mean, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to close it up and then try to figure out how to open it back up somewhere else. And now all these people are without that service.
Absolutely. There is a lot of work to be done, especially I would say on the children's side. So we're doing really good things on the adult side. And so we were just in Sioux City yesterday, we were touring Siouxland Mental Health, they have subacute services now. So in Sioux City, they're a full-blown access center. So what that means is that they can get all the services under one roof. They can get assessments, they can have 23-hour observation if needed, they can move into crisis stabilization, or they can move into a subacute program, which is just a little bit longer. It's not quite, they don't need inpatient level of care, but they still need some supervision, some medical monitoring, but not quite to that level of inpatient. They have that, so that's available for anywhere from 5, 10, 15 days. It's a little bit longer, so when I think about it as like adjusting medications, that may take some time, right? It's not gonna be in 3 days you're gonna know. Maybe in 5 or 10 days you're going to know. So they're going to require that medical monitoring at the same time. The other really neat thing with subacute is that they also work with co-occurring conditions. So if people have substance abuse issues at the same time, as long as mental health is the main thing, but substance abuse is also co-occurring, they can treat those individuals. That's huge because we have a lot of individuals that self-medicate using substances, and so they end up, you know, where do we put them? Do we put them in detox, or is it mental health? Now we can serve them both under one roof, and work through that. And so that's a really exciting thing again, because once again, people were ending up in inpatient units because there wasn't another level of care. You had basically, this is what I do, you had emergency room, right? I go to the emergency room, I don't know what to do with my loved ones, so I put them here. I hope they can get into an inpatient unit somewhere, or they sit in the emergency room until they can. That was it. And then, or family goes home and takes care of them, and they get an outpatient appointment, and we wait for meds to get adjusted. And guess what? We may be in crisis for the next month or two, right? Now, with this, there's different levels of care. So now we can say, okay, if they're not inpatient, maybe we have these services come in their home. Maybe they go to substance. Maybe they go to crisis. Maybe they just need observation. These are different services that have never existed in the state before, which I think about it as, if they're like steps, which step do I need to be on? And we're not all on the top step in inpatient. We can have steps down, and then we can separate that out. So there's enough room for people that need inpatient, and there's enough room around, because everyone is just, you know, scattered around in a different level of care, which makes it more appropriate. That's exciting. That's good things coming. We need to work on the kids version of that. We have some crisis stabilization for kids. We don't have enough, and we're working towards it. And so that's coming, though. I mean, we're just about 2 years into developing children's services, things like that. We're trying to get adult services up and going, and then we're going to work on kids as well, and we're doing it at the same time. So on page 6, you can see all the grants that we wrote here throughout this last year. You can see Atlas has gotten some different grants. Community housing, that affects a lot of our different areas here, as far as housing, updating some of the housing, giving their staff training on how to work with individuals to maintain their housing. Osceola Hospital got $50,000 towards renovation of space towards mental health. Let's see, just trying to look throughout here. Sibley Ambulance got $50,000 towards the transport van. And then Palo Alto Zero Suicide, well, it says Palo Alto. What we did is they actually took this, our board asked them they wanted to do like teacher appreciation gifts in Palo Alto County, and I love our board. Our board says if we do it one place, we do it in all places. So that got expanded out to all 6 of our county schools. Our teachers got a thank you, a teacher appreciation, we got all of the resources, mental health, brain health resources for them for this next year. And so that was the endeavor that, all of our counties got to benefit from. So we granted out $1.1 million. We had 23 agencies ask for funding, and we denied about $3 million of funding because we just didn't have it. So really exciting to see that, that money get out, get into our communities and get to the people that need it. And then the last page of that just has all of our staff. So you have a staff listing there of who we are, how to contact us as well. And then the second one I won't talk too much about. If you have questions, I'm happy to, but I want to leave a couple minutes here for Marley. That's our annual service and budget, so it's been approved by our board. Basically states again what services we have, our strategic plan kind of for the next year as far as the services and where we have those budgeted out this next year. I don't know that there's anything major, like big initiatives that we're working on this year outside of just building our core services and working with Easton Center on the development of our new crisis stabilization center. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Marley to talk a little bit about Osceola County, what's been happening in the county. Yeah.
I'm watching her, I can tell she's when she's gonna give me my turn.
I know. So one of the things I do is if someone in jail needs jail medication, I come out, fill out the application with them, and then help set that appointment up for them. So that's nice to have, and then we cover those psychiatric medication, the cost of those when they are in jail. Right now, I believe Osceola has 2 residents in RCF, so these were individuals that went through the doors initially of law enforcement, just wasn't the appropriate setting for them, there were mental health concerns, needed a little bit more long-term stay somewhere to get stability on medication and stuff, so we're looking at a year for one, probably 5 months for the other. And the goal is to discharge them back to the community, hopefully, but with more supports in place, stable on their medication. We just found out about the First Responders Foundation, and so we're really trying to get that connected. They did a training probably 2 weeks ago, but this could include jail staff, law enforcement, hospitals, ambulance. I know I've talked to Sandy Smith with the ambulance, and they see a lot of mental health calls just on those too, and we're glad someone's responding, but they shouldn't be the ones first responding. So, making sure she has yard signs and crisis magnets to take out all those calls from maybe some of those frequent flyers. Hopefully we can get them in the right door so they're not utilizing the ambulance service full time. Towards the end of last school year, I met with James Gray, trying to figure out how to get more therapy services available to the students. Amanda Maple with Interconnections is fabulous, but shortage. We need more providers in addition to her. And so we had a conversation with Champion State of Mind out of Esterville, and they were willing to do some telehealth here in the area, and then if there was great enough need and she could find someone to fill the position, they would look at school-based as well. And along with that, Ben Davis did I think it was a community needs assessment, and mental health needs was high on that list too. And so we're working on ways we can get, I think providers is going to be the big thing again. We gave money to renovate the space, but how can we maybe incentivize people to want to move to Sibley, or even Northwest Iowa, anywhere, and provide those services. So I think the need is there, it's recognized, but it's the shortage of providers. I love that the stigma is going away and people are saying this is something we need. So I think that's good. We just need to find the people to fill the seat. And then I also spoke at a Kiwanis. That's always kind of fun just to kind of share what we do with Spring Pizza Ranch. So.
Yeah, and so this, the last thing that I will add is that we do have a couple contracts. So in the jail here, so an inmate is in jail and they're here more than just a night. obviously. If they're in for an extended period of time, or the jail administrator sees that they are maybe needing some psychiatric care, we have a contract with Integrated Telehealth Partners, and so, they're an agency that can provide telehealth, psychiatry into the jail, and they can provide, medication assessment and do medications and med refills. And then the jail administrators know, and they can pick up those meds, and then the region will reimburse for those meds. So that helps out while they're in, in jail and things like that, as well as hoping that we can get them stable while they're in jail, and then, work on making those appointments and making those connections afterwards, so that they can maintain out in the community. So that's really important for us. The other thing I'll just add is, as regions, we, pay those commitment fees, so when someone is court committed, they have a court committed attorney, any assessment fees, those transportation, things like that, the region helps pay those. One thing that we did since I took over is, we were doing, at one point in time, a couple of years ago, we were doing collections, trying to receive, when they were, that was never very successful. So we discontinued that, and we actually changed our, how we do that, rather than sending them a collections letter saying, we just paid commitment fees for you, you owe $35 for this. We now send them a letter, because again, we weren't successful, it cost us more money to try to get the money than it was worth. Now we send them a letter and say, hey, we understand you just had emergency, we call it brain health care, we want to help you, so reach out to one of our service coordinators if needed, or here's their contact information. So just a different approach on the culture of how we're trying to approach these individuals. Again, looking at that stigma piece of it, looking at how we can wrap the services around someone and want someone to step into the services to be able to receive that care, rather than, this is just my opinion, I felt that it was like, well, now you access, now you owe us, but if you want help, we'll help you too. So we just try to change the way that is. I can't say that it's been utterly successful where we've gotten a ton of calls. Most people that get a commitment aren't very happy about it for the most part, but we have gotten a few calls back to us saying, hey, you know what, thank you for sending this, what can we do? And then our coordinators send those letters out themselves, they sign them themselves, their card and brochure, so we try to put as much of a personal touch on that as they can, so that people are aware of who we are. So we're just really trying to offer that in the community to our citizens and the people that we serve. So we're really happy to be here. Again, it's enjoyable to do the work that we do, and we're thankful that you allow us the opportunity to do that. So thank you, and we'll be happy to take any questions as well.
Anybody else got anything else?
Thanks for everything you do.
I asked all my questions.
Jason's a great board rep as well, so we appreciate you sending him. He keeps us in check as well, so, Jason.
Because I'm here too.
Yeah, Jason does a good job at that. I say this, jokingly, but whenever I, do everything, I do my, secondary, okay, what's Jason gonna ask? I'm ready for Jason, and I appreciate that, because it greatly helps, and I appreciate the relationship and the board we have. I think it's, in my opinion, I'm very blessed to have the board that we have.
Geographically, we're just kind of stuck with east and west, it's the way things work out, but the way the board operates, it's really not a divide. They work well together, see everyone succeed, it's been good.
Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
I was gonna say, I don't have any email or video.
You got it.
You only have like 15 times, right?
Thanks again.
Thank you.
We have 10 o'clock. Possibly closed session. Some discussion. Thoughts, comments?
I believe, and before we have any vote on any closed session, that Mr. Smith might like to address with the board.
Sure, if you guys would allow it, but just a couple of short comments that were.
That's great, I got a couple of short comments for you and Bill.
All right, good. Nothing wrong with a good back and forth. All right. Sorry, I'm not gonna be reading it, but I have
So, my name is Colin Smith. I represent a number of, rural electric utilities across the state, including the Osceola County Electric Cooperative Organization, which is headquartered here in Sibley, as I'm sure you know. I just want to speak to you today about some concerns that have been raised to me through the client, regarding the recent county ordinance number 60, which, deals in our realm primarily about, the use of, utilities in the road right of way. I think it was supposed to be effective September 1. I believe we've been complying with it to the best of our ability so far. But we have some concerns and we wondered if there was some tweaks that we could possibly work out. One of the things that I wanted to take front on this is, most of it, I saw it on the agenda there, is, the RECs, the rural electric cooperatives, we are not the pipeline, okay? Just because the pipelines are underground and sometimes we bury lines, does not mean we are the same. We're not regulated the same, we're not policed the same, and all of that. And we have experienced this, and I've been dealing with it in several other counties where it's hard for us to be able to make that demarcation, between, some of these controversial projects, which, full disclosure, I am not representing and will not be representing any potential pipeline that comes through this county, so I don't have a vested interest in any of that. I only represent the RECs, on that site. The Osceola REC is a member-owned, non-profit rural electric cooperative, provides reliable, affordable, energy to local businesses, industries, farms, and homes in Osceola County, and I believe, based on what I can gather, I think it actually even provides power to several members of this board, to your homes or your businesses. They have about 400 miles of overhead lines, about 100 miles of underground lines. They have about 1,200 accounts, which is pretty big in a county like this. And they also have some big development projects in the near future that are going to be started not in a number of months, but in a number of weeks and days. So this is why there's a little bit of urgency, for me to come and speak to you. We also have a really good safety record. We are not one of the fly-by-night operations or anything. We're part of the community. We have 4 sort of guide stars that we talk about all the time in the cooperative community: safety, reliability, community, and service. Obviously, we take safety very seriously. We don't want to do anything that hinders reliability, because I think we all enjoy light bulbs in our houses and things like that. Community interaction, right? The more businesses that we can hook up, the more, economic development we can generate locally. And then service, which is, we don't want to do anything that's going to harm the ability for us to give the maximum amount of service at the lowest amount of cost for all of our areas that we serve. I'm sure you've spoken to your county attorney, which, by the way, I want to stop and make a comment here real quick. The county attorney and the county engineer, through informal conversations I've had with them, have been fantastic. Not every county is that way. Not every regulator is that way, but I really do think that they deserve a round of applause on that. They've been very cooperative, and, it's really nice to be able to have people where you can have genuine conversations and try to make some progress without having to make things very formal and all of that. It's good. There's a couple of legal matters that I would raise, which is, the first thing I want to acknowledge, the county engineer does have the ability to do certain things within the road right of way to make sure that your secondary roads are in good shape. We absolutely appreciate that. We've had good relationships with the county engineers in all 99 counties that the REC serve over the years. So we're not saying that the county engineer has no power by any means. We do think that there's a good role there. The utility code at the state level, however, is a little bit odd, because the utilities do sort of have an unqualified right to construct, operate, repair, and maintain utility facilities in road right-of-ways, generally speaking. So you have this weird intermix where the county engineer code section was probably not drafted at the same time as the utility code section, so we need to find a way to harmonize them, if that makes any sense. The validity of of utilities to operate in the road right of way has been litigated, has been upheld. Not necessarily in the same context that we're looking at here, but generally speaking, it's there. So what we want to do is make sure that, you know, the board and the county attorney and the county engineer sort of understand the legal landscape. You know, it's not Nolan's job to have a copy of the utility code on his desk every day, right? It's not. That's the world that I kind of swim in, and he and I have had a good dialogue back and forth about what's going on. We have a lot of moving parts with this. We're talking the state Department of Transportation about how vehicles can operate the road right of way. We're talking the Federal Department of Transportation that provides funding for certain roads. We're talking about the Iowa Utilities Board that actually regulates the utilities and their operations on the ground and at a corporate level. We're talking about the Federal Highway Safety Administration is another one that we deal with all the time. And so we have a lot of moving parts in addition to, as we all know, we live in Iowa and we have adverse weather events, you know, there are gubernatorial and presidential proclamations. You know, if a storm comes through, knocks out the power, Chapter 29C governs, you know, what can be done and what can't be done on an emergency basis and things like that. Looking at Ordinance 60, I'm not positive that all of those facets were taken into consideration, and that's not an insult to you guys, but you would never have known. Right, you wouldn't have known, and we want to be a partner in maybe just moving things around the edges to help it all make sense. You know, when this all started, I reached out to the county attorney and the engineer to figure out how everybody can work together. But we understand that the board plays the pivotal role now that we are at the ordinance stage, right? And so, you know, I want to make sure that we have a respectful dialogue back and forth on that. Another part of that is, I do realize that some of the application fees and things like that would be flowing to the secondary road funds, that the engineer would be using, you know, sort of be the steward of it. We are not against paying our fair share for the work that we do. I want to be very, very clear about that. The way that it's paid for, I think, is what's really crucial. So, for example, when there's an advanced permitting and authorization process plus a fee up front, that is an accounting matter, particularly in emergency situations, right? So let's say we lose power to the courthouse, right? I don't know if we serve the courthouse or not, but let's say we do, right? So it's hypothetical. You know, the most important thing is get the power back on, right? That's the most important thing. And deviating resources for paperwork and for, you know, going to the accounting department, which may or may not be down because of the same storm, mind you, as far as, you know, being able to pay, is a little bit of an issue. However, on the back end, if we're talking about inspection fees from the engineer for things that we have already done, that's a different matter, because he has the responsibility, to be able to inspect and make sure that everything is safe. And so, paying those inspection fees, reasonable work, whatever it is that we need to do, based upon the scale of the project, that's not an objection that we have. The other financial aspect of it that I would like to raise is the bonding requirement. There's a couple of aspects to this. The first is that, at least with respect to a very, proportionally large project that's coming up, with respect to the Osceola REC, it is not commercially possible for us to secure a bond. It is not. I have seen the correspondence with respect to the financial institution. It's not possible for a number of reasons. Short timeline. Second reason is that bonding companies will not put their neck out on a risk for a bond, where, as in Iowa, we are already legally responsible by law to pay for any damage directly. Right? They won't write a bond for something we already have to pay for.
They are insured, right?
Oh, we are insured to an astronomical extent. And that was going to be my next point, which is the Iowa Utilities Board and their regulations, the amount amount of insurance that is carried by RECs is, we honestly could probably destroy almost every secondary road in this county, and we probably would have enough insurance to cover it. I mean, it is a ridiculous amount of insurance, but that's the way the business model works, and that's the way the regulators want it, right? So when bonding companies look at that, being like, you're already covered, why would I? Because what they don't want you to do is draw down on a bond when you have another source of revenue through which to pay for it. Does that make sense? So that's a big concern. The other thing is with this upcoming project, I mean, we have, with supply chain problems, it's a miracle we even got the amount of cable that we have, is we can't just leave it out in the open during the winter. There's no place to store it. I mean, what are we gonna do? And then we have to wait an entire year to put cable in the ground, and that stops projects and economic development and other things. So that's part and parcel of the request that I'll make here in a minute. But, you know, to give some historical background with respect to operating the road right of way, so not to bore you too much, but electrification in the United States started in 1882, started in New York City. So all the big cities got lights first. Iowa was on the last part of the curve. We were a rural state, right? So when we started electrifying, we used right-of-ways, and that's why the law is set up the way it is because everybody lives by a country road, right? Everybody lives by farm market road or whatever it is, right? So that's where it is. So when we have regulations that touch on that road right-of-way and the ability for utilities to use it, it's an existential problem for the RECs, because if we can't operate there on a cost-efficient basis, and keep in mind, everybody in the county who's hooked up by the RECs, they're ratepayers, right? So the more expensive the bonding, the more expensive the fees, it's a tax. That's what it is, it's a tax. And we all know that right now, people don't want higher taxes generally speaking, ever, but we certainly don't want in the economy that we're dealing with. It's my understanding, based on the historical records, Osceola Electric Properties has been providing services in this county since 1938. So they've been around for a long time. And we don't, you know, we want to keep rates low. In fact, Osceola ranks as one of the lowest energy cost counties in the entire country, believe it or not. You know, as part of this process and what I do professionally is, you know, we've reviewed similar right-of-way application forms in various counties, whether it's Hancock, Socorro, Franklin, Hardin, right? I mean, you name it, we've done a survey of pretty much all of them. But the structure and fees of what's happening here is a little bit dissimilar from some of them. For example, in Wright County, they had a fee structure they put into place recently, and I went up and sort of did the same presentation and discussion with them. We moved it more to like a notification and after the fact inspection fee requirement. I provided those materials to the county attorney. I don't know if he's provided.
Inspection fee and permit fee are all lumped into one. That's all one fee. So I don't know why I need to be change it. You just want to change the definition of it instead of it being a permit fee, make it an inspection fee.
No, so there's a difference.
I mean, that's not how it's structured currently. That covers the cost for us to go back and inspect that. With your permit fee covers all those things that you're talking about.
Correct, but legally that's not accurate. So an inspection fee is, you can't inspect something that hasn't been done, right? Can we all agree that that's true? So an inspection fee is, we're not paying you for permission to use the road right of way, which you legally can't do those. But we will pay you to go look at the work that we did in the road right of way after the fact. So if you want to make us pay $100 after the fact, fine. But for us to go hand in hand to you to use the road right of way and pay you $100 for the privilege of even asking to use the road right of way, that's illegal. You can't do that.
It's a permit fee to use the right of way, work in the right of way. You could still use it, you just have to pay the permit fee to get access.
We have an unqualified right to use the road right of way.
If you're in the right of way. And there's a
Correct. I mean, if it's not in the road right of way, by all means, have it.
There is all sorts of spots, and we're not the only county. We just got done having a drainage meeting here not that long ago. There's a lot of counties that never established the right of ways beyond the edge of the road. And we have a whole patchwork of that stuff all through the county, and I'm sure you guys are probably sitting on private property
I'm not sure where you're going with that, but
I'm just saying from a liability standpoint, for what you guys doing work on private property, that somehow we gave you permission, that we thought we were giving you in the right of way, but we're not.
So, okay, maybe there's some confusion here. So what I would say is, let's say we're gonna do an overhead line on Sixth Avenue. You guys even have a Sixth Avenue.
Overhead lines aren't part of this, that's only the.
Okay, let's do buried lines. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it is. We're gonna do a buried line adjacent to Sixth Avenue within, a 30-foot distance of the road, right? So let's say it's in the road right away. We're just doing this hypothetically. I don't know how you guys define it. We have an unqualified right to do that. You literally cannot force us to have a permit and pay you for that. The Iowa legislature has made a policy decision that took that.
Permit is the inspection fee for afterwards, so if you want us to just change the name of it to the afterward inspection fee, I mean, we'd be more than happy to do it.
Yeah, boom, there, yeah, okay, I think, maybe it's a communication problem from my perspective, on that, but, I mean, if you wanna structure it such that, within 30 days after the work is completed, the county engineer has the ability to inspect on what you did, and then you have to pay the reasonable.
I think that's all laid out in the permit.
It's not though, because it requires us to have a permit to,
It lays out what happens with that permit.
But here's the thing, a dictionary will tell you a permit is permission to do something. It's not after the fact, right? And inspection fees necessarily.
So you just want us to change it from,
Yeah.
to an inspection fee, basically, is what you're saying. Even though the permit says that this is for the inspection after you're done in the ditch, you just want us to say inspection fee.
Yeah, not far off, because here's the thing, if we have to pay $100 every time a truck leaves the warehouse, we're gonna hesitate to do any work. So if we serve any of your houses, and we have to put up paperwork up front, I hope you like not having lights a little bit longer, because we're gonna have to wait for the paperwork to be pushed before it's done. An inspection fee after the fact, after we do our work, the engineer can tell us if we did it right or we did it wrong. And if we did it wrong, we are statutorily liable to pay for any damages or things like that. There is a substantial difference between the term permit and the term inspection.
It's a matter of semantics, it's also.
It's legally significant,
So what you're asking for is just to have it changed to an inspection fee?
What we would, first of all, we'd like the whole thing to go away, I'll make the big
That's
ask.
I'm gonna take off my supervisor hat here for a minute and put on my REC member hat, since my manager didn't have the time.
That indicates a conflict of interest here.
No, it's not.
Look, I think the temperature in the room's getting a little hot.
Here's my issue with this, is the manager has a responsibility to know what's going on here.
Yep.
He had ample opportunity to come, so you're not here. We could have had this discussion at any of the multiple readings that we had of this ordinance prior to this, which nobody bothered to show up. And the first thing that the manager does is threaten litigation when he finally is notified of the new ordinance, which I'm just appalled that is the route that you guys have taken with this.
I want to be clear, we need to correct the record there. No one has threatened litigation at all. I've had multiple conversations with your county attorney.
Oh, they did. Mr. Knaple did threaten litigation when he talked to my engineer.
I don't know what he said. I'm not responsible for him. I'm his counsel. He can't litigate on his own. I'm the one.
He's the manager, and that was the comment that he made.
Well, I don't know what he told me. I wasn't there clearly with that conversation.
Well, he should be here along with you today.
Well, let's put it this way. I told him that I would come on his behalf. Okay, so I'm not, if you're offended by that, I apologize.
I'm concerned that he had ample opportunity to have this discussion without threatening to sue.
Yeah, maybe one of those things get by us that we don't realize. I'm not too excited about that.
Look, we are not, cooperatives are literally what they are called, which is we want to be cooperative. We are not in the litigation business. I mean, we can be, but we don't ever want to go there. That's the last resort. I don't know what was told to you, by whom, when, whatever. I clearly was not part of that conversation.
I talked to Lee as well, and he threatened the litigation angle as well. So I'm like,
again,
as a customer, I'm not real thrilled with this either.
Right, I'm just saying, I don't know anything about that.
Well, that's not discussion for a board of supervisors
Yeah.
meeting.
I just have one.
I'm just saying right now, I'm not threatening litigation against this board at all.
I just have one comment. Would it be possible for you three to sit down, come up with a plan?
So that would be my ask, which is, and that's what we've done in every other county, it's actually worked out very well, we've had this in multiple places. Where, you know, maybe an ordinance or a policy or something is put in place where there's some, you know, I wouldn't expect you all to be experts in utility regulation things, when there's something that comes up. All that we ask for is if we can just temporarily suspend whatever's in place, and then we'll go back to the sandbox together, and we'll figure out how we share the toys. That's what I'm asking for. If that is something you're amenable to do, that's what I would request, is that, you know, give us 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, you guys pick the timeline, for us to do some stuff, and we can come back and have the conversation about what we need to do. That's, you know, the example that we did in Wright County, that was successful, we've done it in other counties as well. You know, I'm not trying to be adversarial here at all, I hope that that's not the impression that you're getting from me. And in fact, I actually really appreciate that you guys would take the time for us to be able to talk to you. But as far as whatever comments other people made, I'm not responsible for that, I don't know what happened. All I can do is talk to you as an advocate for their interests, and, you know, if we can have the bonding requirement be suspended, figure out maybe how to reconfigure the fee requirement, we can put language together, send some drafts back and forth, have it come back to you, and then you guys can make a decision or send us back to the drawing board. That's what our ask is.
I think that's acceptable to all of us, I'm not sure, maybe not you, but I think that's what we're after that, that's what we're after.
Yeah, I mean, if you're amenable to that, that is absolutely something that we would consider. You guys are the decision-making authority here, we want to respect that.
Does any of you guys have any comments, Nolan, Keith, anybody have any comments?
I suppose my comment would be, I can get into detail a little bit further with you guys in a closed session if you'd like to, as to what I precisely would advise you to do. However, I did send an email to all five of you, Rochelle and Keith, containing my specific legal advice, which, not to get too much into the specific details of what any litigation might look like, obviously it sounds like from talking to Mr. Smith and the REC, that they all hope we could avoid that. I would say, though, that my advice to you remains the same, that it would probably be best both for rural electric cooperative and their business in this county, but also, just as importantly, the county, that we work together to find a way to make this ordinance a little more workable for the folks that do this kind of work, and go ahead and, for now, by order of the board, suspend the enforcement of the bonding requirement for all applicants, not just the REC, for a period of time to be determined by you guys. 30, 60, or 90 days is fine. I think more like 60, given what we're all working with, would probably be more workable. And I would be more than happy to work with Keith and Mr. Smith regarding what a potential resolution would look like in terms of an amended ordinance. And I think that would keep everybody happy enough for now. And really, like when I was talking with Mr. Smith out in the hallway, what they're really looking for is for the status quo to kind of continue, so that they can continue to do their work the way they are accustomed to do it, and in the meantime, we can find something that's more workable. I would mention to the board, you know, this outcome gives us the chance to basically get everything that we wanted in the beginning with this ordinance, which is the assurance that things can be taken care of if they were damaged, and some control over the process. So I think it's a good outcome. If you have any more specific questions, I'm happy to address those in closed session.
And I would say, you know, one of the concerns that we had in other counties is making sure that, you know, a county engineer or whoever knows where work is being done, when, and what the nature is. And we have some draft language that we could work on with that as well. Because I'm not trying to box anybody out on this. We certainly don't want to do that. It's just the way it's currently configured is a little rough. And again, I'm not sure why the ordinance was put into place, but, you know, to the extent that it's meant to tag somebody other than the RECs, there are ways around it. Not every public utility is regulated the same.
legally, we can suspend this and this ordinance, and then we have to, publish and redo the thing if we get to that point?
Yes, you can suspend enforcement, just as you, the county acting as a small, county legislature, have legislated in this area and passed an ordinance, which is a county law. You can suspend enforcement of that county law by your order. And if you guys notice, when it's on the agenda, there were 2 items for the closed session, one of which was to discuss law enforcement matters, and if they were disclosed, it might cause the disregard of that. That's basically the idea that, you're talking to me, the county's law enforcement official, about the enforcement of the law, and you ordering that a law that you passed not be enforced for the time being as you work on an alternative. And that is within your implied powers as the county's essentially legislature on matters the county can or falls within your jurisdiction to legislate on. And in the meantime, we would work on something that would be more palatable to everyone involved, and then you would go through the process of noticing it up, putting that, all together, and then, given that there's a process for waiving the first and second considerations of an ordinance, I think that, this whole situation has shown us that there are time constraints, there are things that are going on. You could probably waive those readings, and as long as you have it published, get that taken care of in one consideration.
How much time do you think is 60 days better, 90 days, and if you get it done in 30 days, great?
60 days, sound good to you, gentlemen?
That works fine, and if we get it done sooner, I assume we can bring it
Yeah.
to, and not to pile on what Nolan said, but whatever he said was correct. Just so you're aware, other counties that we've encountered this issue in, they've almost uniformly done this suspension process, and then an expedited waiver consideration coming back, so it's pretty much the playbook that we've had, and it worked out fine. Again, we could get this worked out in 10 days, for example. Maybe it takes 60, but I doubt it. And then, but if we have that wide berth, it might be helpful because we will be, it's football season, so no one's going to be hanging out on Saturday, and things like that. But I'm more than happy to work with you and to figure out whatever it is we can do to sort of find a middle ground. If anybody has any other questions, even after this meeting, by all means, I'm available, willing to help, but I appreciate the time. You've all been very respectful, and hopefully I haven't embarrassed myself too much. And, we'll find a solution if that's what you all want to do.
Recommendation seems to focus primarily on bonding requirements, but there's an issue made with permit versus.
Right, which,
Inspection, and our language says permit, not inspection, so is it sufficient to leave the permit language, or does that need to be included in the suspension?
From my discussion with Mr. Smith and Jeff and Keith, it sounds like the bonding requirement is the biggest issue, and that for now, and I don't want to speak for the REC, they could live with the fee being the way it is, but going forward, they would like to see that changed for their accounting purposes and for their comfort with the overall legality of it. I don't know if that's accurate.
Well, the way I understood it is that if we don't change, I'm sorry, Keith, it would cause, anytime they went out, it would cause a problem, had to go through the paperwork.
Correct, right, so, it's the front end versus the back end issue, right? So, if we go out, well, let's put it this way, even if we pay an upfront fee, and we go out and we screw up the road right away, we still have to pay.
Yeah.
Right, but the paperwork and the fee payment and the accounting issue with the way that co-ops are nonprofit organizations, they're not like your Mid-Americans or your Alliance, right, it's different. I won't bore you with all the stupid details, but it's easier for us to be in a position to pay after the fact than before the fact, because we can't always anticipate what we're doing up front, right? Mid-American has a cash account that they can draw on at any time. Here, when you do upfront fees, you're drawing upon the money of the ratepayers and the co-op members every single time, right? And it's not good accounting. So what the inspection fee is better after the fact, because if we cause damage, we have to pay. There's literally a statute that says, anything you do, you have to pay. I mean, it literally is damage, pay. It's not damage, contest damage, pay, it's damage, pay. Right? That's it. We're on the hook. And they know that, and that's why we're insured up to what. So for us, if it was, the bonding requirement goes away, it's a little bit duplicative and commercially not even possible. But then we semantics is a good way to put it, right? We move it to an inspection fee of $100. I'm just putting out a number, you guys, set the number out.
And, you know, essentially you were paying a bond to the county before with the previous setup of us retaining the money and then giving you back after the work was done. I'm like, I don't know, it was a smaller bond and there was no complaint about it. But when it got out of our hands and we said you had to go do it somewhere else, that became an issue. So
Right, but see, the bond is actually sort of, it's insurance upon insurance upon insurance. So it's going to raise the price of your electricity for us to do a bond that there's no reason to.
I've seen my electric.
Right, so, I mean, we already essentially are bonded, like, bonded by insurance and bonded by the statute, right? And the REC is not gonna run out of money as long as people still want light bulbs, right? So it's gonna be there. And that's why the bonding companies are like, why would I ever write a policy for you if you're already triple insured? Are you gonna draw on our bond first and cost us money, right? You almost can't draft bond language that way if you're working that. Like, it's just not gonna work.
But, you know, as a small county with a small staff, we have to be able to recoup that inspection time. And we have to go out and review all your guys' work.
And that's why we do not contest the inspection fee at all, because the county engineer's office is gonna have to send somebody out there, it's gonna cost time, it's gonna cost resources, maybe they have to get survey equipment, I don't know what it is, I'm not an engineer, I don't know what they do, but, that's absolutely right. So when there's an inspection fee, we're on the hook for it.
That's just a matter of semantics we can change.
Right, it's almost like, yeah, as long as if you put it on the back end as opposed to the front end, I know it sounds stupid, but if you put it on the back end as opposed to the front end, it stops the hesitation factor, it stops the upfront paperwork, get the project done factor. After the fact, you know, like, let's say there's an emergency, we'll submit the paperwork, you know. For example, when the derecho happened, it took 19 days for Cedar Rapids to get power, right? Can you imagine if it was Alliant, if Alliant in Lynn County had to pay a fee and submit paperwork that took 48, 72 hours to even start? It wouldn't be 19 days, it would have been 21 days, 22 days, things of that nature. You want to inspect their work after the fact, when everybody has their light bulbs back on, by all means.
That's how you do a one call.
Exactly right, it's exactly what we do
You can
right
get
now.
an emergency one call that forces everybody to get it done in 24 hours.
Right, so I think it's 48 hours now, but that's it. The one call is exactly the model we used in Wright County, which is, we'll give you an update 48 hours ahead of time for installation, right, for example, right? Repair and maintenance is kind of silly, there's really no reason for that, like tightening a lug nut, nobody cares about that. But if you're gonna put in, for example, a new mile of line, right? 48 hours ahead of time, we'll just use the one call model, and we'll let the county engineer know that we're gonna do this, we'll let them know when we're done, and then once it's done, we'll pay you for whatever it takes for you to come out and look it up. That's exactly the Wright County model that was acceptable for me. It's very simple.
It's only the digging part, not the put the poles in part.
Well, I was using an example, but yeah, I mean, whether it's digging or poles, it doesn't matter. An installation is essentially any major work that wasn't pre-existing, right? That's what an installation is.
Keith, I think you had something yet or not? Comment regarding the, upfront whether they've been compliant date. There are 3 permits that have come in the house since the first. They paid the $100 fee on all permits moving forward. So 2 of the permits, the valuation was underneath the bonding threshold, so they were issued. The 3rd permit is the one that is the major work that's getting ready to occur. So if we were to suspend the bonding requirement, that permit would get issued today.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the ordinance 60.
Support. Have a motion to support, that is a roll call.
And then, let them, you guys figure out, come to it.
Yeah, we'll all go back together and do whatever.
Did you
Motion
need to
60 days.
suspend the entire ordinance, or just
bonding.
The bonding requirement alone, the bonding requirement, the fee requirement, or the whole ordinance? I think suspending the whole ordinance might be going a touch too far. Just the
And then
bond.
we can work it out so it's acceptable for everyone.
There are other permits that are part of ordinance six.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you wanna do specific parts of it.
Bonding requirements,
I
section
suggest a motion, we suspend bonding requirement for 60 days, during the suspension, ordinance 60 shall be reviewed, with modifications to be considered.
I think that's fair, yes, that sounds.
Yes, particularly because I think we've had a bigger conflict of interest identified, I'm going to abstain from the.
Yeah, I mean, we'll negotiate, but I mean, we've already paid the $100 fee for that, so it's water on the bridge. As far as I'm
Nobody,
concerned.
exactly what Jason said, so.
Got Jason.
There won't be enough people to vote.
Yeah.
Three of us are members.
I think you've clearly identified a conflict in your comments here today, so I'm not going to participate in the vote where conflict is not honored.
How's that a conflict?
You said you were taking your supervisor hat off and speaking as a member to the board. That's not
No, I was
following our
talking to the
conflict
board.
of interest.
I could still talk to the public meeting if there was public
That's fine,
here.
let's finish this now, we can. The
Well,
three of us can.
No, I really,
You can't.
if nobody's going to, then I can't either.
No.
I don't consider it a conflict of interest, but I don't.
A policy that we've already approved and we're considering may use to any private interest or concern of a board member which directly or indirectly through business, investment, or family affects the judgment of the board member in a manner. That's what I've heard happen.
Okay, so that means everybody here that's a member can't vote.
You said you were taking your supervisor hat off and speaking as a customer. Other members did not.
It doesn't matter the
To
way
me, they
that,
were
the
maintaining
way that
partiality.
reads, the way that reads, Jason, is none of us that are members can vote.
Your understanding of that is that I just stated what I understand it to be. If it's removing impartiality, then it applies. If you're not going to remove impartiality and operate only as a board
We're
member
all
here.
customers, so it's not gonna be impartial. So that means that the three of us here can't vote.
Okay,
I'm gonna like,
Yeah.
some like.
okay, okay, so just to back up a bit here, who out of the five of you guys are members of the REC? You two?
Yep.
Okay, and as members, are you simply recipient customers of electricity?
Yep.
Do you have any voting power or share as to what goes on with the REC? Okay, and the other three of you guys are not members at all of the REC?
I'm in Lyon County.
You're in Lyon County, okay. With respect to what Jason has said about Ed, you have identified that you're splitting your roles in your consideration of this and your discussion of this. That, to me, implies there are issues with a conflict of interest. I am not gonna tell you, because you do not have direct voting and ownership control interests combined, that you necessarily have a conflict of interest. I will tell you that under the policy that we've had, since I've been here, that I worked on when I first got here, that sounds a lot more like a conflict of interest than what Jerry.
I'll abstain and make everybody happy.
Our policy asks that you identify a conflict and you not participate in the discussion.
I'll still make that motion.
Jason made the motion, did you?
No, I suggested language, but I'm not making a motion.
I make that motion.
I have a motion and support to suspend with that wording for 60 days. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
So are we just modifying the bonding
We are
requirement
suspending
fee?
section two. Section two. Right, Keith? Yeah, section two of work.
All right. Is there anything else?
I appreciate the, time that y'all allow me.
Thank you.
If there's anything else.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, if there's anything else you guys need, be sure to let me know. If not, we'll, go to the drawing board for 60 days and we'll get you guys names. That'll make it work.
Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, Keith, for your guys' efforts.
Thanks for your consideration, guys.
Thank you.
If there's anything else you guys need me for? Nope, I think that's it.
You guys have a good one.
Becky has a lineup, so could we move that discussion down a little bit, so she can be here?
Okay, I think it's okay with me.
She wants to be here, but she has a line, so I'd rather have one person here.
Jason, question for you. You abstained?
Yes.
I'm not sure why. If you don't tell me, that's fine. I just don't understand that.
All right, you don't have a conversation here or after.
We can have that.
We have a conflict of interest policy that I don't think was followed, and I don't know that, personally, that it
Give
gives
me
me a
that
challenge.
as a
So,
board.
yeah.
Oh, okay, well, that answers the question. Well, now we're gonna review approve conflict of interest policy.
Make a motion on that.
Have a motion to approve. Review, you wanna review it first, or?
They want to add that.
All right.
It's the same thing.
All right, I have a motion to approve that. Mine support.
My opposition remains. I think parents is a hard one to keep tabs on and make sure that you know you can identify proper conflicts of interest.
Run that by me again, I didn't quite catch that.
I've shared that concern before. State code does not include parents as direct relatives that should be, that are mentioned. Our policy does. The JRJ thing in the past is one that I had no say over, I had no involvement in, parents being involved on that. It made me think there may be investments in areas that they're involved that I'm not aware of. But those on the board with them would know they're involved, and therefore they may think I have a conflict, when I don't even know they were participating. So, it's a difficult area to make sure that it's all covered, and I think it'd be better if it wasn't included, that it's not been a past approach, so
Okay,
I
so
would continue.
get this right, you're saying take the parents out of it? Is that?
Yeah.
Family is defined as parents, siblings, spouse, domestic partners, significant other, children, grandchildren.
Because you can't have impartiality, you can't have family members involved. That's why no one's talking. That's why no one's talking when you wrote it up.
Any more discussion? I've had motion and support. Want to wait for Mike? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Much better.
Consider approve.
I hope you feel better.
Oh, yeah. Consider approve National Voter Registration Month official proclamation.
The Secretary of State's office has selected county to recommend September 20 next week is, voter registration, recognition day. I put an ad in, or not ad, but a press release in the paper, should be out in tomorrow's paper. For that, to just get everybody ready for the November election, so they just look forward to that, consider it, you guys have done this in the past.
Sounds like it even needs, but any motion or anything like that?
Yes, please.
I have a motion and support to approve the National Voter Registration. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Discuss ISAC survey petition to remove typos. Okay.
There was an email that got sent out. Do you have a copy of the survey in your packet? Inside the last one, in the packet. That we've been, recommended, or there's asking for financial.
Question, says there will be costs associated with intervening, which would likely be done as cost share among 99 counties. How likely would it be that your board of supervisors will approve expenditures of funds for this purpose?
I normally don't do surveys. I don't either. Not too easy. Do we have to do this? do this?
If you want to say in whether ISAC intervenes on the pipeline issue, previous conversation expressed no interest or not, said we did not have interest in that. This question clearly would ask for what a board vote would be like. I didn't think it was appropriate for individuals to respond with what likelihood of the board would be, the board weighing on it, in on it.
If you guys want to, that's fine, I don't think
I'll make a motion that in response to the ISAC survey, question 8, that Osceola County would not be interested in participating in funds.
you said would not,
Would not.
I'll support that.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, yeah, sorry.
She's by herself right now, so it's not gonna work. So, I can try to explain it to you. Her and I have been talking. We visited with Jack, and we have a job description of both officers that this person, potential person we would hire, would do drainage of both the auditor side and the treasurer side. They would help with elections, scanning all the election stuff. And Becky, they would do driver's license training. There will be some traveling with that. We kind of, whatever salary we choose, we would split it 50-50 between the two offices. You know, we talked that if she has a lineup and she needs help, this person is in my office, can go over there and help. I mean, we're gonna be very, you know, help each other out. You know, they've been extremely busy the last couple weeks because of driver's license and tax collections, and they're short a person. So, you know, maybe this full-time person will have to be over there for a week or two full-time. But, and that's gonna be the same for me with elections, you know, especially in general, so. Yeah, so we would, you know, help each other out whenever's needed, and we would split the cost 50-50 between the two offices. The drainage is the big thing to help with that, extra work.
You said to me that Shankry was over in Sharon's office, did I catch that right, or did I misunderstand? Doing, or she was doing something to Sharon's, or did I catch that wrong earlier?
Real estate.
Well, she's gonna be transferring Sharon's real estate records over to our side to get ready to do the valuation report. It's just, it's a computer software that she just has to, she doesn't physically have to be over there, but she'll be transferring over Sharon's 22 real
Is that
estate records.
something that normally we do?
Yes, yes, that's just a normal process.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just part of the valuation report, to get that ready.
Fiscal requirements.
You know, Jack said we had to leave it in there.
I like that.
So, yeah. We just need additional help.
I would like motion to hire somebody.
Have a motion and support to put an ad out for a floor, that's what we're calling it.
The work schedule being not standard work week, what are you thinking? Largely normal courthouse hours,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
election times and other.
Yeah,
maybe
maybe
modified hours,
yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. You know, we were thinking 8 to noon, one office, and then one one up, and rotating it, or, you know, this is,
Pretty flexible.
yeah, we're gonna be very flexible with each other.
Day at a time, too.
Yeah, you know, we're just,
It's included in the budget, then,
it will be, yeah, after you get approved it.
At what level?
What do you mean, what level, what phase now?
How much?
We're thinking 37.5. Chris started at 36.5, so we're thinking 37. For our full Scotland.
Bob's comments.
You wanna add the janitorial?
There's not gonna be enough time in the day for this person. What's our busy time to start here?
All right, I think we have a motion in support. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Oh, let's see, where's my? I think we got it through everything, don't we?
Claims, yeah.
Claims, yeah.
No drainage.
Water service claim number 343.
Make a motion to pay that claim.
Support, motion is support for paying that claim. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, or abstained?
Abstain.
Motion carried.
Use the sheriff's sentence, too.
What's it cost to get somebody served?
Just varying traveling time and,
Which county?
anywhere from 35, most of it's 35, there's one that was for $665, one for $116.
$600.
Yeah, it goes wherever they're traveling to, wherever they have trouble, it doesn't tell us that. Main fee looks like it's 35 for the most part.
Stone roof on the windows or that around or?
Yeah, for all the, yeah, do our final payment and then the final walkthrough. Stone group,
Page 20 or something.
you're all done with that now.
Sounds like it's under any.
I know, but they were waiting till all the repairs got done and. Yeah, this is your copy, I have a form you just sign the actual contract.
Would the place where we buy our janitorial supplies have a list of places that provide janitorial services?
I don't
Cause
know.
I'm sure they could probably provide them with all their chemicals and all the rest of that stuff. Or not,
If I could,
you know, I,
I know Stacy, you know, used to do stuff, I think you work for the vet clinic enough now that you probably wouldn't have time.
Anybody got any committee reports, courthouse?
Can I give an update last time on, early childhood in Iowa? Maybe I did. I don't remember. So, DHS, everything DHS touches is ruined. They decided to redraw all the lines for the service areas. And you're supposed to submit a request for funding to provide those services for these areas. And supposedly they worked on this plan for the better part of the last 3 years. And when the deadline came, there's 46 counties without services for children's services right now. So now they're scrambling to try to get the providers whose contracts were ending to try to keep continuing to provide those services till January, and then they're gonna try this process all over again to try to get someone to take these services. So we went from 99 counties that had service to now 46 counties that don't. And we're one of those counties. We didn't get anybody to submit for the Northwest region for any of our children's services. Nobody submitted a request to provide services. And the one that was kind of close in the area, they decided that they didn't meet the required amount of points on their application. So, yeah, we're running them for kids services at the moment.
Do we do this by drainage districts or by facilities? This is drainage
Is that mine?
those are the ones that need three, right?
Three, you're three.
Or three.
I don't know how to get over there. Do you want them?
No. You just handed it to me, and I just about signed it, I looked at the drainage district, well, that's not me, but it's the joint district, so.
That's all I got for my committees.
The only update I got is I had third judicial, like everything's running a lot like normal. They've been raised their mileage rate from 39 cents to 50 cents.
Really?
Well, I had a heart attack right now.
Where are we at?
45.
Anybody else have anything, Jason, Leroy?
Right, again, this is going out on their own the first of the year.
Really?
That, they were, the hospital was, trying to launch out on their own.
Is that to get grants or not?
Yeah, well, that way we can get grants, too. And the hospital is still gonna be, help, not really help, but take it back up. To kind of help them get into the groove.
So will administration get more expensive or?
They need to get a director and they're gonna hire 2 more people on the board. And then hire, get to, they're gonna have 7. I just,
Will the hospital financially be involved?
not supposed to be, no.
Well, they came to us for money.
Right.
The hospital did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was for the daycare, though, wasn't it?
for raising
That's what
kids.
he's talking about.
That would be for. So that still goes private again.
I know, but are they gonna financially contribute to it?
I'm gonna guess.
I would almost say yes, but I wouldn't say that for sure.
Okay.
Experiment. Okay.
Who's gonna be the replacement for board members? How are they?
But they're gonna hire, get another parent, if I say, and then a business person, or somebody that will be. And that would be, after the first of the year, or whatever. Could be before that too, I guess, they would get somebody.
Will be into privatized, will we still have them?
They'd have to sign a 20, talking about, they're gonna be a nonprofit still, or what's their?
Just have to sign a deal.
We already paid them, we already approved the nonprofit for this year.
But that was with the hospital, wasn't it?
We
Or
did
was
the
that?
right beginning.
Is that who we cut the check to?
Don't just have to keep us informed and let us know what's going on there.
Just have to, board president from them sign it.
I imagine rates are gonna have to go up.
There's, the staff has got their meetings every day with the insurance and the wages and the benefits.
Might be looking for help.
Well, it's not easy.
Anybody else got anything? Is that summit meeting, was that tonight?
There's that Heartland, 6 o'clock in the next street center.
Is any, another one? I won't be around.
I got family in from out of town.
I'm not sure, I've been real hesitant to go to those, because it ends up being.
Yeah.
All right, well, anyway.
And you got my memo that ISG won't be there either, representing us. They were going to be, but the person that was going up, her husband was in a car accident last week and not able. So they have no representation here. I thought I sent that email out to
You
you.
did it, you did. That one I got. Think we should have somebody there? Jason, you gonna go?
Probably.
All right. If not, anybody got anything else?
Motion to adjourn, you got it.
Second. Have a motion and support to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carried.
That's for Rolly, right?
Do I have
Another one, yes.
Not gone.
Hey, Mike, did you get your email figured out yet?
You know how that goes.
We're trying to figure out anything that goes BOS, I don't get. If Rochelle sends out a separate, again.
Which I normally do with everybody else that doesn't.
So anything BOS, I don't
I
get.
tried.
You better think